Good morning, church. My name's Chico West. On this day, Thursday, April 2nd, I'm excited to bring to you John 18:15 through 18, Peter's denial. Let me read it for us. Simon Peter followed Jesus, and so did another disciple. Since that disciple was known to the high priest, he entered with Jesus into the courtyard of the high priest. But Peter stood outside at the door. So the other disciples, who was known to the high priest, went out and spoke to the servant girl, who kept watch at the door, and brought Peter in. The servant girl at the door said to Peter, "You also are not one of this man's disciples, are you?" He said, "I am not." Now the servant and officers had made a charcoal fire because it was cold, and they were standing and warming themselves. Peter also was with them, standing and warming himself. I love this story about Peter's denial. I can so relate in so many ways. Many times throughout my journey with Christ, I have identified with Peter in many areas of my life. Peter was impulsive, he was bold, he was brave, but also he was the one that denied Jesus 3 times. I have done that over and over in my life. I can identify with Peter, and I don't mean this in any disrespect, but Peter reminds me of someone like myself, an alcoholic. I am in a long-term recovery, but I am impulsive, I'm bold, I'm brave. Like the alcoholic person, when they're in their disease, they continue to deny. They get these firm resolutions to say, I am not going to deny you, Jesus. They do it in their recovery. I'm not going to drink again. I'm not going to use again. And then over and over, they continue to do that. Peter, in his denial, it's so powerful. It wasn't some religious leader where the first denial came, right here in John 18. It was a servant girl. It was a young girl that questioned him. And the question, if you go back and look at it, it was a loaded question. You are really one of his disciples, aren't you? I mean, it was like, what else could he say? But what got in his way? It's just like the alcoholic. His ego got in his way. His ego was consumed in self. It was in survival mode. The ego for me so many times is what I like Alcoholics Anonymous says. It's an acronym, edging God out. Peter was bold the night before when Jesus told all his disciples at the Last Supper, all of y'all are going to betray me. And what did Peter do? He goes, you know what? I know those guys. I've been with those guys. Yes, they are going to betray you, but I won't. And what happened? Jesus looked at him and said, no, you're going to betray me 3 times before the rooster crows twice. No, I won't. How many times in my addiction, when I was in the throes of it, did I keep saying, I'm not going to use again. I'm not going to use again. And yet I kept going back to it. Peter's denial reminds me so much of how I need to continue to persevere, how I need to continue to die to self. The greatest part about the last verse right there in verse 18, they were warming themselves around a charcoal fire. The only other place we see a charcoal fire is 3 chapters later in John 21, after Jesus' death and resurrection. And right there, he called Peter out. And Peter said, yes, I do love you. So he's reminded over and over until his death, Peter's death, of how he denied by being around charcoal fires, by seeing, hearing the roosters crow every morning. He's reminded of how he denied his Savior. How have I been reminded over and over of denying my Savior, of getting back into self? So I love this passage. This passage points back to me that I need to get out of self. My biggest problem is me. It isn't anything else but that ego in me. And I'm glad I'm here at church today, giving you this opportunity to hear how we all deny Jesus. So thank you.